Bum, bum, Cowabunga!
Hi, it's me, Gazbot. It's day 64 of 100 days of making comics. Is that right? Yes! I hope. Now I'm doubting myself. Is it day 63? We'll find out later when I'm editing. Anyway, today I got up and pretty much worked on art stuff all day. Not the Horror A4, but client work mostly. I had taken on a short-term job where I just had to do sort of a caricature illustration of a person earlier this week, and I just finished it today. I was like, this is the shortest one of all the jobs I have going, so I can just bang it out. So I got that done, sent it away for approval. Hopefully they'll be like, cool, and then I'll be done. And if not, then it'll be minor revision, then I'm done. So I got that done, and then I was working on Kid Switch pages. I finished the inks for the page I was working on and started the flats for the colors. Tomorrow I'll probably finish that up. Didn't work on any Earthling, but I have a little bit more time on that one. That has, of the three most pressing jobs, that has the longest deadline. So once I knock this headshot out, which is effectively done, finish up Kid Switch, then I'll start really banging away on the colors on Earthling. But meanwhile, I did all that stuff, did a few other things, answering emails and stuff. Then I got to the Horror A4, and I didn't put a lot in. It was about an hour, and of that hour, it wasn't even all drawing because my computer was acting weird, and I had to restart it, and then, like, the settings on my Wacom on the Cintiq, like, the button stopped functioning the way I had I have it bound. When I press this one, it's alternate. When I press this one, it's the letter N, etc. And they got scrambled up somehow, so I had to reset all that. So I did, like, a half hour, and then I did 15 minutes of fixing stuff, and then, like, another 15 minutes. Didn't get a lot done, but it's always exciting because I'm starting a new page. And I did a process video. Won't be the most exciting process video because it's sort of me taking the rough and going from there, but I don't know, maybe it's another part of the process. But I'll throw that up here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so this is page 7 from the beginning. I have the little thumbnail, which I had drawn, taken a picture of, and then imported. And here I have page 6 up as reference, and this is me messing around with the light and dark to make it pop the most from this crappy little pencil sketch. Then once I get that, I lower the opacity to 50%. And I don't always do the panels first, but in this case I decided to, probably because the sketches were so sparse that I felt like it would be easier if I came down really hard on the layout and pinned myself into some specific panels, and that way, even if the sketches are a little loose, the structure of the page would be tight. And I also got the idea to make kind of a black box behind the lower 2/3 of the page. Since it is nighttime and they'll be outside, I figured just sort of fit the mood, or maybe just be a cool design. I don't know. I'm not an expert at layout of panels, but it felt right. Somebody had asked me in the comments at some point how I know what shape panels to make and where to put them and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't give him a very satisfactory answer, but that's me consulting the script. But I guess I try to service the story, try to clearly tell the story. That's number one, and try not to be too repetitive. I don't want one shot that looks exactly like another on the same page. Hopefully not in the same book, but being realistic, at least not on the same page. This guy right here, I redrew him, messed around with him for a while, ended up not using him at all. I mean, I used the character, but I could not get a pose I liked out of this, and I redrew the whole thing. But yeah, how do you know how to lay out a page? When I read someone else's script, read my own script, I have an idea sort of what the individual shots will look like, as though I was watching a movie or whatever, which I've heard a lot of people say. That's sort of how they do it. And then based on dialogue or action, I know only one action can happen in a panel, and you can only have one or two back and forth balloons, and so that gives me an idea how many panels I'm going to need to complete a scene, and then I try to keep my panels to in the neighborhood of 6 to a page. Sometimes it goes over, sometimes it's less, but anytime I do more than 6, I feel like it starts getting cramped, and that's sort of an arbitrary number that I break that rule all the time. But more and more, as I've gotten older and wiser, and hopefully a little bit better, my number one priority is clear storytelling over a cool picture, over a dynamic layout, over accuracy. I mean, all those things are important, but number one, I want to want it to be clear. I want people to understand what's going on and not have any questions. If I succeed there and fail everywhere else, I'll still feel like I succeeded. And I guess that's a very comic book narrative way of looking at it, which is the mindset I'm trying to get into, and not be so much of an illustrator, but more of a storyteller. Reference, just to check these guys out. And I needed to check the background a little bit because it's not the exact same scene as the previous page, but I wanted to match up a little bit. And it's going 8 times speed, so you can't really tell, but that's me going down and looking at a panel I imported from the last page. There, say. Just to, that's the Stansport Tube Station. So they're no longer in front of the actual train or the tracks because the train's pulled out. And some dead trees and papers and just things to show they're not in the best neighborhood. And then I have the skyscrapers in the background because they are still like in the city, part of the city, but they're in like the more, for lack of a better term, ghetto area. It's not so affluent, not a little bit run down. It's not the center of corporate life or intelligentsia or whatever. But it's still there, looming in the background, not too far. Consulting the script again to see what's said in panel 2 and what's going on. I think I didn't quite finish panel 2. I got pretty far on it, but basically the guy's putting his hand on Boot's shoulder and sort of like, hey, do you know where this shop is, or can I borrow your phone or whatever? And she's like annoyed, but also a little wary of like, is this a thing? Is he threatening me or is he just asking? And he's way bigger than her. He's like at least a foot taller than her. He's big for a dude, and And I think that the way I have him sitting now looks kind of more natural. But when I looked at the thumbnail I had done, I had him using his arm this way, his right arm, as opposed to his left, which arguably, I don't know. It felt awkward to me, but the layout worked a lot better, and it didn't affect storytelling, so it worked a little better, and I think it helped push him in. So yeah, there's that.
And scene. So yeah, there's that. Also during the day today, I've been catching up on Peter Palmiotti, link here, also in the show notes. His 100 Days of Comics. I'm only on like the 30s. He's someone who finished before I started, I believe, or did he finish right as I was starting? Anyway, he's been done for a while. This whole thing was started by Kevin Cross. Kevin Cross, and I'll put all these links in the show notes. I'm not going to put all the hyperlinks up here. Kevin Cross, I followed him from Art and Story, his podcast, and then some of the other ones he did, Art and Story, and what was the one he was on with Jersey Drozd and Mark Rudolph? Was that Art and Story? Yes, that was Art and Story. Previously, he was on Big Illustration Party Time. These are all podcasts. I guess I'll have to be putting a lot of links. I probably mentioned them before, but anyway, I watched all of his. That's how I found out about this. Then I started watching smatterings, like the first or second episode of everybody working on it. Then eventually, once I started doing it and getting a little bit involved in that community, I decided, well, I'm just going to try to focus on the people who are currently doing it, which at the time I started was mainly just Johannes Vick, which I'm always... Everybody, I'm afraid I'm going to mispronounce their name, so anybody who I do, I apologize. But anyway, he was doing it when I started. He's finished now, and I finished all of his 100. So him and Kevin Cross are the only two that I've actually finished. I spent a lot of time catching up on Scott Serkland, and I had previously watched some Peter Palmiotti, and I've been bouncing back and forth between the two of them and looked at a couple of introducing Emmys in between. Anybody that is 100% done with 100 days, making it a point of watching all of them. Not necessarily in order, although Peter Palmiotti has been seemingly going through mine from the beginning on up. Like every day I get like 5 new comments and likes, which is super appreciated. And it gives me an appreciation of what an endeavor it is to watch all these videos. And in some ways, being that I'm effectively the only one doing it right now, because I think Patch Silver is just done unless something changes. And while Emmy is sort of doing it, she's not doing daily updates. So, in practice, I'm the only one doing it. And it's a little bit lonely and a little bit sad, but it does give me the advantage of anyone who's interested in watching an updating video, anyone who's already watched the old ones. I have the advantage of being the sole lone stream new content provider of this sort of little thing we got going of the 100s. So there's that. I think I kind of lost my train of thought and went in a big loop train of colazzle. Colazzle is not a word, but neither is loop train. So yeah, right? So anyway, I've been catching up on that. The other thing is, in between watching the 100 Days and Peter Palmiotti and all these guys, I sometimes like to watch other things just to break it up a little bit. And I rediscovered a hidden gem. Well, I rediscovered what used to be a hidden gem of a guy who used to be called the Angry Nintendo Nerd. Now I think he's just called the Angry Video Game Nerd. And it used to be on a thing called Screw Attack, and now I think it's Cinema something. I'll put the link again down below. Or actually, I'll give him a link right here, because all those other guys I'd already given links, but I'll give him one. And this is a guy that came out, I want to say before YouTube, or certainly before it was a thing to have shows on YouTube. And I remember somebody showing me one of his videos back when I worked at Animation Collective, which was a studio where I did animation stuff in New York. And it was him ranting about playing old NES games and how terrible they are and whatever. And it was awesome. And that kind of stuff happens all the time now with current games and old games. But like, to my knowledge, and I could be mistaken, but to my knowledge, he was like the first guy, or certainly the first one that did it that well and consistently. And to my surprise and delight, he's still around doing it, making new videos. I think he has a partner now. But I was watching old videos of him reviewing games that I'd seen before, but it was sort of like this weird nostalgia for like 6 years ago. Of like, oh, I remember this guy. Oh, he's great. And he is. He's very crass. He curses all the time, so he's not for everybody. But I feel like I'm the exact demographic of humor and age and attention span and needing to fill my day that I really dig his stuff. So that's why I'm kind of plugging him here. And also because, we talk about the things that inspire us. And it's like, oh man, had I thought about it, he would have been somebody that inspired me to do this sort of thing. Except this was never something I really aspired to do, the videos that is. It's sort of a byproduct of creating art and trying to be involved in, the world. So anyway, did some work on Kid Switch, did somebody's portrait caricature face, did some work on the horror, watched some videos of Peter Palmiotti, watched some videos of the Angry Video Game Nerd. And that will be the close of the day, and the day that is numbered 64. And that means... That was my Cisco. I just realized. Like Benjamin Sisko, Captain Sisko from Deep Space Nine, Avery Brooks. Let me try it again. And that means... No, see, that's not quite right. He's got to say this. And that... And that means... Maybe. We'll end on that. And that means... We've got 36 days left!